Jai Bhim, Jai Mulnivasi, Jai Savidhan, Jai Bharat. Today is Sunday, and once again, today we are discussing on one of the very important topic. And recently, you came to know that there was a union budget which was presented on 1st of February, and it had various pros and cons. And our people, particularly the Mulnivasi, the SC/ST and OBC mass, they must know what is there in the budget and what is not there in the budget. So, considering this, we had organized today's talk, and we had with us eminent economist Mulnivasi P.S. Kamble sir along with us, and he is going to tell us about this Union Budget 2025-26 and inclusive Viksit developed India. So, without wasting time, let me welcome Mulnivasi P.S. Kamble sir. Sir, Jai Bhim, Jai Mulnivasi, and
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
Payment in his network. So, as far as this Union Budget 2025-26 is considered, first I would like to know what are the key highlights of this budget, so that how it is different from previous budgets, and in short, what are the main points as far as this Union Budget is considered. Please, sir.
Ashish, I am very much thankful to English for 25-26. First of all, I will try to place before you what are the major highlights of the budget for 2025-26. Actually, this budget talks about inclusive India, Viksit Bharat. And according to this budget, it is going to focus on agricultural development, micro, small, medium enterprises, investment, promotion of exports. These are the prominent, this budget described as engines of growth. And it intends to give emphasis on these engines of development, that is agriculture development, development of micro, small, medium enterprises, enhancing investment, and more importantly, how exports can be promoted and how international trade as an engine of growth that can be exploited and utilized. That is what the main engines of development according to this budget for 25-26. Again, this budget gives more importance to Viksit Bharat, developed India. And so as to realize and achieve Viksit Bharat, developed India, this budget intends to give emphasis on accelerating economic growth, realizing and achieving inclusive development, enhancing spending power of middle class community, which is overburdened by the tax, and increasing investment in private sector, and more importantly, how the sentiments of households can be changed, as the result of which it will enable us in realizing inclusive growth, sustainable growth, and also developed India, that is Viksit Bharat. Thus, the budget for 25-26 first tries to describe what are the engines of development. And in the engines of development, this budget intends to give focus on agriculture development as a fuel of development, development of micro, small, medium enterprises for the development of industry sector, increasing investment so as to realize and speed up overall development of the economy, and promotion of exports so far as reaching towards the goal of Viksit Bharat is concerned. And in addition to that, it gives emphasis on to realize and achieve Viksit Bharat, inclusive developed India, and sustainable developed India as well, on accelerating growth, trying for inclusive development, increasing spending power of middle class, increasing private sector investment, and more importantly, changing mindset of households, as the result of which it will be possible to realize and achieve Viksit Bharat, sustainable development, and inclusively development India. These are the major points this budget tries to highlight. This budget has highlighted. Over to you, Ashish. Unmute. You are muted, Ashish. You are muted.
Sorry, sorry. So as far as this 2025-26 budget is considered, and the overall focus on in this budget is considered, we can see many pros and cons with respect to the deprived classes or the excluded classes. Specifically, the basic needs, if we see the roti, kapda, and makan, what is said in Hindi. So particularly that comparative study or that comparative allocation still is missing, because and also we can see from the last few budgets, specifically as far as this particular mass is considered, the deprived class is considered, there is no much focus or no much allocation of funds in various schemes. For example, as far as the tribal and minorities are considered, the education empowerment budget for these minorities that has been slashed by almost 50%, and it has been reduced from 678 crore to from the last budget it was almost 1575 crore. 1575 crore was the budget for education empowerment, where it is reduced to 678 crore. As far as the national fellowship and scholarships are considered for the scheduled tribe students, it has also been reduced 99% almost, 240 crore to 0.02 crore. And also national overseas scholarships for tribals also has been reduced by 99%. So if we see just as at a glance, we can see that it is totally deprivation of funds for the tribal communities, for the deprived communities. So how you see from the last few budgets the implications of allocations of such funds, which is definitely needed for this particular class as far as the development is considered. But in the budget, it is slashed from 50% to 90%. So how you see these implications of this particular budget as far as the tribal community is considered?
Actually, I will try to cite some of the figures relating to what inclusive development of India. Prominently in this budget, expenditure on subsidies has been reduced. That is fertilizer subsidy, food subsidy, and petroleum subsidy. When we make comparison of provisions in 25-26, it is 1,67,887 crore in 2025-26, which was 1,71,299 in 2024-25 and 1,82,292 lakh crore in 2023-24. Talking about food subsidy, it has decreased from 2,11,814 in 23-24 to 2,03,420 lakh crore in 2025-26. So petroleum subsidy also reduced from 1,12,240 in 23-24 to 12,100 in 25-26. So all these subsidies, fertilizer subsidy, food subsidy, petroleum subsidy, that was providing assistance to food security, for agriculture development, and for transport development, that has been reduced. Now, talking about social welfare, expenditure on social welfare is scheduled 60,052 lakh crore. 60,052 lakh crore in 2025-26. In 2025-26, which was 42,065. So there is an increase of just 22,000 lakh crores on social welfare. And as you mentioned, the breakup is taken into account, and all the categories which are taken into consideration. This proves that there was need for more provision about the welfare of backward communities or deprived classes. But as you mentioned, a significant reduction has been taken place, and whatever the figures for social welfare that I tried to cite before you, that shows a minor increase. A minor increase is found, and when that is taken into consideration, then it is found that for the inclusive India, whatever the provisions are made, those are not sufficient and adequate. Those are not sufficient and adequate, and that is a thing which is necessary to be taken into consideration when we talk about inclusive growth or inclusive development of India. Because development of backward communities, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, that is of crucial importance. Minorities, OBCs, that is of crucial importance for the inclusive development of India, for the inclusive growth of India. But so far as the provisions are made, these provisions prove that to that extent, provisions are not adequate. Provisions are not sufficient. Actually, provisions on welfare of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, women and child, and also other backward classes, those are expected to be provided in proportion of their population in the total. But unfortunately, that is not being considered. Just it is allocated, but to that extent, in not proportion of the population or the universe of their population. That is of crucial importance, which is necessary to be taken into consideration. It is therefore what you are tried to place before is, it is true that more provision was necessary, more allocations was necessary, and one more point which is very much necessary is whatever is allocated, entire amount should be spent. There should not be a shortfall or distinction between allocation provided and allocation actually implemented. That difference should not be there. Whatever is provided, there is need for increasing provisions on expenditure for social welfare schemes and welfare of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs and minorities. But at the same time, there is a need for taking precaution that whatever is allocated, whatever allocations will take place, whatever expenditure has been distributed, allocated, that should be spent entirely, that should be spent thoroughly, and that provision is necessary, that precaution is also necessary, so far as to bring about inclusive, socially inclusive development of India, that is of crucial importance.
But sir,
This
this
means
figure,
that,
this figure if we see, last time it was 240 crore, now it is 0.02 crore. So it is slashed by 99%. So how
yes,
we can say that it will be helping and it will help in making the India inclusive India?
actually, so far as the budget allocation is considered, budget on social welfare as a whole, they have increased considerably. But so far as breakup is concerned, welfare of scheduled castes, welfare of scheduled tribes, welfare of OBCs, minorities, that decrease is observed. In macro perspective, for welfare of the society as a whole, or what it is, they called as a social welfare. On social welfare, allocation is increased 66,052 lakh crore, which was 46,482 lakh crore in the last year or in the revised budget. But so far as breakup is concerned, breakup of allocation to the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, minorities, that shows a significant slash that requires to be taken into consideration. Over to you, Ashish.
Yeah, basically, sir, this is the main thing, because actually, if we see the overall budget, and as far as the deprived classes who constitutes of almost 85% people are there, if we consider the overall mass, and
Yes.
the basic needs, the people, like second need is basically the education. The education is the fundamental human right, and but still millions of children in India, they are deprived, and as far as the actual scenario is considered, there should have been a more concentration on how we can improve the rural education, how we can improve the maximum masses who can get the budget allocation should be in such a way that this maximum people in the rural area should get education. But if we see the budget concentration focus is more on AI and research oriented initiatives in this particular budget. So this is not going to help the major mass who is more than 50% of the mass who is in the rural area. They are not going to help with providing all internet facilities, but if they are lacking with the teachers, the basic teacher, the basic school infrastructure, so why not much focus is given, or more budget allocations are given considering the maximum mass who is there in the rural areas, and how we can how, because unless and until this 55% mass is developed, the country will not develop. So, by giving provisions, budget allocations to AI and research-oriented initiatives, whether really it is going to help the needed mass, or it will help the people who are already having the facilities of these urban masses. So, how do you see these allocations?
Very important question, Ashish, you have raised. What is the place and significance of education in the union budget for 2025-26? First of all, I shall cite some figures which are given in the union budget 25-26. For 2025-26, allocation is 1,28,650 lakh crore in the 25-26, which was in the last year 1,14,054. So marginal increase is found in the budget for education. And in 2023-24, it was 1,23,365 lakh crore. So just marginal increase in expenditure on education is concerned. But there is no any breakup of expenditure on education. What will be for higher education? What will be for technical education? What will be for professional education? What will be for elementary education? That breakup is not there. So if it is taken into account, what you said is absolutely right. Education is very important. Education can play a very important role in overall development of not only the economy but of the society as a whole. Because education is a means of rapid and overall socio-economic development of the country, socio-economic development of the economy. So far as the provisions on education in this budget is concerned, this budget only refers of IITs and Institute of Science, IISCs, and any reference of any state universities, any reference of any central universities is not there. Only in this budget, a little bit focus on IITs and Institute of Science is there, and there is no any reference of central universities, state universities, and other education and research institutes also there. And what you talked is absolutely right. It gives importance to artificial intelligence in these IITs and IICs. This means that state universities, central universities, education institutes, research institutes have been neglected. And that will not serve the purpose in the spread of education, in realizing and achieving socially inclusive education, and more importantly, that can adversely affect inclusive development also. So it is therefore, there is a need to take into consideration the expenditure on education should be increased, and more importantly, expenditure on higher education is necessary to be increased, because education in general and higher education in particular plays a very important role in socially inclusive development of the economy, in the industrial development of the economy, in the overall development of the economy. So education is very important. Unless and until uh, education is provided with adequate expenditure, enhanced expenditure, increased expenditure, education's impact on overall development and social inclusive development cannot be realized and achieved. It is therefore what is needed, what is required. It is required to give more allocations, and more clarity should be there in the allocation towards higher education, professional education, secondary education, primary education, that is there. And unless and until enhanced provision is there for the education, inclusive education is not possible, and that can negatively affect social inclusive development of the economy. Also, it can be a hurdle, it can be an obstacle in the overall development of the economy also. So, provision of expenditure on education is very much necessary. It is of crucial importance, it is of greater importance, and that needs to be rethought, that needs to be rethinking, and more allocation is necessary. And we should need for allocating more for central universities, allocating more for state universities, allocating more for specialized institutes and research institute. But unfortunately, this is missing. Only giving importance to artificial intelligence, that will not serve the purpose. That should be supportive, and that should not be mainstream. So mainstream is allocation for the education, mainstream is allocation for the inclusiveness of the backward communities, socially backward communities in the mainstream of education. There is a need to increasing allocation of expenditure for higher education, because number of challenges and problems universities, colleges and institutes are facing. There is understaffing, there is no funding for research, there is a problem of infrastructure, there is problem of number of facilities are required so far as qualitative education, qualitative research is concerned. And unless and until increased attention is paid towards the socially deprived communities and their education, scheduled tribes can be there, scheduled castes can be there, OBCs can be there, minorities can be there, and that is the major share of the total population. And unless and until attention is paid towards them, inclusive education is not possible. Consequently, inclusive development will not be realized and achieved, and consequently, that can be an obstacle in the Viksit Bharat as well, developed India as well. That is what the views and thoughts on education are there. One thing just I want to mention before switching over or towards you, that this budget has tried to give emphasis on agriculture development. Some provisions relating to agriculture development are there, and in the provisions relating to agriculture development, Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana, and it is going to implement in 100 districts, which will cover or which will try to reach 1.7 crore farmers. It is going to increase credit to farmers to Kisan credit cards, and it is going to increase loans up to 5 lakh to the farmers, 7.7 crores, and going to increase
Yes, sir. Are you able to hear?
Gives emphasis on agriculture development. I am of the opinion that the provisions for agriculture development in the budget 25-26 are not sufficient and adequate. So there is need for even more allocation for agriculture also. What your provisions are there, that is good, but that is not up to the mark. Those are not appreciable. Those will not realize and achieve rapid agriculture development, because the contribution of agriculture to the GDP of India is only up to 18%, and growth rate is up to 2% only. So this performance of agriculture is taken into account. That is not sufficient and adequate so far as realizing and increasing their contribution towards the agriculture development. That is one thing. And second important thing that I want to place before you, actually there was need for giving emphasis on industrial development, but on industrial development also that focus is not there, that can realize and achieve rapid industrial development. So that is also a thing of concern which requires to be taken into consideration. Only while focusing on industrial development, it has given importance to the development of micro and small medium enterprises, MSMEs, and credit facility will be provided, and inclusion of women and scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, especially a startup is concerned, that provision is there. And more importantly, only definitions of micro, small, medium enterprises, that is investment and turnover, has been increased. And only micro, small, medium enterprises, that is not sufficient and adequate. So far as industrial development is concerned, there is a need for giving emphasis on manufacturing sector and giving emphasis on micro, small, medium enterprises as well. So I am of the opinion that provisions for agriculture are okay but not sufficient. Provisions for industrial development are not satisfactory, and provisions for this inclusive, that is scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, OBCs, minorities development, women and children, that is also not sufficient and adequate. One only plus point of this budget is it has given emphasis on infrastructure development. So infrastructure development has been paid attention. That is the plus point so far as this budget is concerned. And so far as socially inclusive development is concerned, it is education is necessary, emphasis on health is necessary, but in addition to that, the tackling of the problems like employment generation, like controlling unemployment, like controlling poverty, like controlling inequality, those are also necessary. But unfortunately, in this budget for 25-26, much provisions about elimination of poverty is not there. Much provisions about employment generation is not there. Much provisions about controlling unemployment is not there. And word inequality is not also referred in this budget. World Inequality Report 2025, World Inequality Lab Report 2025, again Oxfam World Inequality Report 2025, all those have very intensively, extensively highlighted that problem of inequality is increasing very rapidly and significantly, and that can become an obstacle in the Viksit Bharat, inclusive development and also sustainable development. So number of revisions and provisions are necessary to be incorporated that will help us in realizing Viksit Bharat, socially inclusive Viksit Bharat and sustainably developed Viksit Bharat. But whatever provisions are there at this moment are only concentrating on Viksit Bharat in general and particularly on agriculture development, but that is also not sufficient and adequate. Provisions for infrastructure are appreciable, but overall agriculture development are not sufficient, and provisions for industrial development are also not sufficient. So much revisions and corrections are required, especially for industrial development, especially for tackling the problem of poverty, unemployment, inequality, and welfare of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, education and welfare. These health, these provisions are necessary to be increased, and that will help us only in realizing Viksit Bharat, in realizing socially inclusive Viksit Bharat, in realizing sustainably development Viksit Bharat. So there is much space to improve and modify and revise the budget. That is what I feel. Over to you, Ashish.
Yeah, sure, sir. Definitely, basically, even if in the layman's language, basically as far as the farmers are considered, giving them a credit card will not have that much impact in his overall life than if he is getting value to his whatever he is producing. If he is getting particular value, that will be more helpful for him to
Yes,
develop his own family and to develop
fair
the
prices, fair prices.
correct. So
Uh,
similarly, if we see the health sector also today also there are practical things where people have to travel. Rural people have to travel hundreds of kilometers to
yes,
get into nearest PSC, and that PSC also sometimes it is without doctors and
yes,
without
yes. Handicapped,
facilities.
like handicapped, paralyzed.
Correct. So basically, as far as the overall more than 55% mass is considered, similar to education, the health sector is also area where more budget allocations, the provision of
Expected
giving
and desirable.
facility, correct, facilities, doctors, in particular, basically to get them the real life. So in that particular direction, I don't see any provisions in the particular this budget allocation. So how do you see basically you are rightly pointed out that there are many areas where improvements are required, but to conclude what you can say that how and the maximum, because the budget is for the people should get
Yes.
benefited. So considering the
Budget,
maximum mass,
this budget can be
what
rectified. This
yeah,
budget can be rectified. Revisions, modifications can be brought about by increasing expenditure on welfare of scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, OBCs, minorities, increased provisions for education, increased provision for health, tackling problem of employment generation and control of unemployment, tackling problem of poverty because by 2030 we have to realize zero poverty, tackling problem of inequality, reference of inequality are also not there. So, and provisions for agriculture development, as you mentioned, are not satisfactory, are not up to the extent required and desirable, and provisions for industrial development are also not appointing, not satisfactory. They are also disappointing. So there is a lot of space and for revisions and corrections. So for a budget for 2025-26 is concerned, so as to realize Viksit Bharat, social inclusive development and socially sustainably development India. That is what I feel. Ashish, over to you.
yeah, sir. One more thing I would like to know. Basically, this is the part what government wants to do, and what they on their behalf they had already provided the budget, and we can see that the majority of the mass is excluded from the budget. So, as an economist, what you suggest? How the people can get their rights, or what they should do it, or what is the duty of intellectual class as far as this overall awakening is considered?
Very,
How
very,
you can guide?
very important question you are asked. Basically, every citizen should be cautious. He should know what budget is and what they are expecting and what provisions are there and what are expected and desirable. Number two, social organizations should be active and dynamic. They should reach their voice to the policymakers and government. Political parties should be active and dynamic. There should not be any politicization because Viksit Bharat is for all, not a particular party. Social inclusive development is for all, not only for ruling party or any particular party. Sustainable development is also for everybody, for every citizen. Sustainable development is there. So from citizen to social groups to social organizations, to political parties, to bureaucrats, to ministries, they should be intended by Viksit Bharat, inclusively Viksit Bharat, and sustainably development Bharat. Then and then only that can serve the purpose. Otherwise, it is very challenging. It is very, very difficult. It is very problematic, but it is not impossible. It is possible when we are wholeheartedly participating in the decision-making process, understanding budget, sending our inputs to policymakers, and making policymakers and bureaucrats to incorporate our inputs so that budget can be for Viksit Bharat, budget can be for socially inclusive development, budget can be for sustainable development of India. That is what I feel.
Right, sir. Thank you very much for the valuable conclusive remarks given by you and appeal that you had made to each and every citizen of India so that they should get their reliable their rights. Basically, these are their basic rights, so they should definitely get it because these are the people who had sent the representatives to the parliament, and in turn they should get their choice or voice because they are framing the policies for these masses. So definitely, if they are not getting their adequate rights, they have every right to raise a voice and ask for their own rights. Thank you very much, sir, for joining today. And again, we will invite you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, listeners. Thank you, MNT English. Thank you, Ashish. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Okay, sir. Jai Savithan.